welcome everyone to coming to our emergency webinar today. We're going to talk about what is this law about paying truck drivers overtime. So I'm sure everybody's got lots of questions. Like Mike said earlier, make sure you type any of your questions in on the little question box there on the toolbar. All of you should be muted, so we won't be able to hear you, but make sure you type in those questions because we are going to have a time at the end of the webinar to answer any questions that you have. Also, make sure you don't click on that black X at the top. It's going to exit you completely from the webinar. So in a little bit about us here at Superior Trucking Payroll Service, we are the first payroll service in the U.S. solely focused on trucking companies. Our core mission here in the office, and everyone should be able to tell you this if you call, our mission is to help trucking families. We are passionate about that. We are a full service payroll provider and not software rental. Each client is assigned to a dedicated account manager who will handle your payroll week to week. We also offer fully customizable reports and pay stubs and so much more. So today we are sponsored by Ascend TMS. They are the world's most popular TMS software and so easy to use. They give you and your entire team complete control over your daily freight movements and will help you manage every aspect of your logistics and distribution operations. That also includes sending your payroll data directly to us. How easy is that? So we do have a partnership with Ascend. So contact us and let us know what kind of deals we offer. So and just a little bit about Mike. He has over 20 years of experience in the trucking industry. He was a CFO of a trucking company with 80 trucks and a thriving brokerage. This experience has given him the perspective that a payroll solution needs to make trucking payroll easier and less stressful. The solution he has designed is to benefit everyone.
Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome.
So here's what we're going to talk about here. There's a lot of things, but we'll go through some of them fairly quickly. The goal is to keep this to half an hour, but if it goes long, it goes long, but I don't think it will. So we're going to talk about the GOT Act, the Guaranteeing Overtime for Truckers Act. You know, how did we get here? Like, what's some of the background? What's going to happen if this becomes a law? What do I think most trucking companies are going to do? And how would a driver respond? And then there's all the stuff that they're not talking about. That's like the third and fourth order kind of stuff that happens after they make a law. I think that some of this stuff is worth discussing. So, and at the end, again, questions and answers, hit us up with your questions. Don't wait till the end. I've got a couple questions that were already emailed to me, but if you've got more, I want to answer yours too. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Here is my standard issue disclaimer for any time we talk about political things. Number one, I'm not an attorney and I don't know your personal tax situation. So I'm giving general advice and thoughts. And again, yeah, super much not an attorney. So, but I've been in trucking and in payroll long enough that I kind of get how things go and I kind of can see patterns and things like that. So, and also we're focusing on the ramification of the laws and not about this side good, that side bad, as is much of the political discourse that you see, including some of the people that have opinions on this bill. This isn't about what I think is this a good law or a bad law as far as whatever, that no one cares. So this is just about what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. All right. So with that out of the way, House Resolution 6359 proposed just a couple weeks ago. This is the entirety of the bill in the House, which for background, the Affordable Care Act was what? Was it 2,500 pages or something? The tax cuts that were 2018-ish were 900 pages. This is a third of a page if you use a big font. This is the whole thing. I pasted it all here for you. Basically, it comes down to Section 13B of the Fair Labor Standards Act will be amended by striking paragraph 1. That's the whole thing. So, and I put the link in there if you want to go read it yourself. I doubt many of you will because it's all right here. Why would you need to click it? So, but that's the link to the actual bill. Again, very short. It might be the shortest law ever. I'm not quite sure of that though. It's crazy. And so, but that's it. So let's talk about, now they talk about Fair Labor Standards Act, which is 29 USC 213B. Well, what is that? I went and looked it up. 29 USC 213B, that's part of the Fair Labor Standards Act. The paragraph 1 that they're talking about that they want to get rid of would be to repeal this part. These are people that are exempt from overtime. You don't have to pay them overtime. Any employee with respect to whom the Secretary of Transportation has the power to establish qualifications and maximum hours of service pursuant to the provisions of blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that means any employee with respect to who the Secretary of Transportation has, yeah, right? Like that's drivers. Okay, that sounds pretty good. We'll get, pretty easy to understand. But as some of you might know, and all of you will know, they aren't the only people exempt from overtime as it relates to trucking companies. Drivers, helpers, people that load the trucks, mechanics, also exempt from overtime. So what do we say about that? Well, that's a whole different exemption. That's paragraph 11. As I listed here, any employee employed as a driver or driver's helper making local deliveries, compensated, blah, 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 and it goes on down, those people still would still be not subject to overtime. So that's a significant difference already. They're not really trying to solve the whole problem. And again, I'm not taking a shot at either side. The House bill has a Republican and a Democratic sponsor, just to make you aware. So there is some bipartisanship in there. But this law is only apparently for the over-the-road guys, because the drivers help on making local deliveries. He's still not exempt. So another one, and I think this is a big one. Paragraph 16, and we talked about this in some of the marketing we sent out before this. There are drivers that would still not be eligible for overtime. Paragraph 16 of the exemptions: any employee engaged in the transportation or preparation of fruits or vegetables, whether or not performed by the farmer. So produce haulers, you guys can, I want you to stay, but if you don't, you're good. Section 6, until someone realizes that they're not actually saved in this, you're fine, because if you're a produce hauler, they're engaged in what it says right here. So I think you're going to be fine. Again, all this stuff's going to get legislated, or if this becomes a law, all this gets run through the courts and all that. But it looks like you're good to go here. I think that's important, because a lot of people are produce haulers, so, or might become produce haulers if this becomes a thing. I want to point out a couple of fun other exemptions just to show you some of the crazy random things that are in there. The 15th exemption is if you are processing maple sap into sugar or syrup, you don't have to pay your employees overtime, which seems like the most random thing ever. Also, anybody employed by a movie theater. So I guess one of your options, if you want to be really creative, is to put a 2-seat theater in your building. We're a movie theater. Oh yeah, we also run 200 trucks or 4 trucks. But yeah, so that's any employee employed at an establishment which is motion picture theater. So again, there were I think 30 of them originally. About half of them have been repealed. They're crazy things. One of them was about like telegraph people that got repealed, which is good since we don't really need telegraph things. So that's the bill as it stands right now, and this is a little bit of who's covered and who's not. I wanted to put this in there. Here's what other people are saying about it, and this is going to get a little political. I'm not judging the people or whatever, or maybe I am, but I'm just saying, like, this, the American Trucking Association doesn't like it. Talks about a thinly veiled attempt to boost trial attorneys' fees, reduce drivers' paychecks, which, again, yeah. Me and the ATA disagree on some things. We'll agree to disagree on things. That's fine. And then the OOIDA is in support of it. They say that it's only one of the only professions that's guaranteed overtime pay. They both say longer things. I put a link in there. You can read the whole thing. I don't want to take them out of context. But as you can imagine, employers are generally against it. Employees are generally for it, which just makes sense, since the theory is that the employee would get more money. And if you are, you're paying them as much as you can is the employer's position. So again, not judging anybody, but that's just where people are on this. A good question, and a question that I had, was why are truck drivers exempt anyway? The Fair Labor Standards Act was written in 1938. We didn't have the interstate highway system, just by the way, so you're probably Route 66 in it to get across the country. But it was to stop drivers from working too much. That was the whole origin of why they were in there. Why the maple syrup people were in there, I have no idea. But for truck drivers, like, it's a safety issue. We don't want them getting exhausted on the road and causing accidents on Route 66 or wherever they want to go. And so that was why it was in there originally, which makes me ask the question, just as a professional cynic, is, well, what's changed about that? But that's not really the point right now. So what's the current status of the bill? It was introduced on November 9, and it was immediately referred to the House Committee on Education and the Workforce, which seems like a weird committee to me, but there's 45 members of the House on that committee, 25 Republicans, 20 Democrats. I went to their website. You can tell the majority runs it. So it's just kind of funny. It made me laugh. It's not a slight on the Republicans. I'm sure when the Democrats ran it, they did the same things, like put the pictures of their party people and just listed the others and stuff like that, petty things. But again, it's not an either party thing, because I think the Democrats probably did the same thing. There is an identical bill, Senate Resolution 3273, literally identical, other than it says Senate instead of House, introduced by Senator Markey from Massachusetts and Senator Padilla from California, both Democrats. It was referred to the Senate Committee in Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. Again, a weird thing to put together, but health and pensions. But the reason I put that in there is, if those of you who are a little bit of government people and like to watch these things, you saw a dust up last week between a senator from Oklahoma, I think it was Senator Mullins, and the guy who runs the Teamsters, O'Brien. And basically they were ready to, if you'd have had a wrestling referee, they'd have gone right there. This is that same committee. And I got to imagine that the guy from the Teamsters would be called to testify again. So not that government hearings are super fun, but this one is kind of fun. So whatever side you're on, you're like fired up for your guy. So, but I just thought it was interesting. It's the same committee, chaired by Bernie Sanders. So he was the voice of reason, which, yeah. Okay, so we've got this bill. What's going to happen if it becomes law? You're going to have to pay your drivers hourly, or you're going to have an hourly component in this. So this is what I think people think is going to happen. I made up an example. 2,400 miles at 50 cents a mile. I did this for easy math reasons. The market varies all over the place by what you're hauling and what you're doing and all that kind of stuff. But just kind of roll with me on this. The math comes out to be the same. The gross wage was $1,200. This 2,400 miles at 50 cents. And I said it took them 60 hours to do it, which becomes an effective rate at straight time of $20 an hour. So they got $1,200 for 60 hours. Well, under the new law, you're going to have $20 an hour times 40 for the regular pay, and then 20 hours times what's basically $30 an hour, which is their rate times 1.5. So you'd end up paying $1,400 instead of $1,200. The math's all right here, but that's what we're getting at. I think everybody's looking at it this way, and I think it's wrong. But this is what everybody sees. Is they go, man, it's going to cost me an extra $200 per driver per week in this example. And if you've got, I know one of my clients is here who's got about 30 trucks that are company trucks. Like that math, that's $3,000 a week. That's $150,000 a year, plus payroll taxes and stuff like that. I don't want to pay $150,000 a year. There's no market for that. I totally get you. But that's, I think, what people are looking at. When I looked at those quotes before about how the OIDA talked about basically giving them a raise and how the ATA was against it, it's going to be a pox on humanity or whatever they said. I think this is what they're thinking of. And I think when people are asked about it, if you see interviews of people, this is what they're thinking of, and they're thinking about it wrong, because you have someone in your building, in your house, that can do algebra. Not great algebra, just a little bit of algebra. And what they're going to do, I did it for you on the next slide, is they're going to say, well, I don't have to pay them 20 bucks an hour. I can do the math backwards. And so I did the math backwards for you here in the example. Instead of paying them $20 an hour, I can pay them, $17.28 an hour here. And if I pay them $17.28 an hour, then I flip the math right out here. They're within 40 cents. I round it off to the nearest penny on the wage. They actually lose 40 cents in this situation. Again, that takes like 4 seconds to figure out what you want to do. So I don't see it being an issue here. That's what I want to say everybody, that's what many people are going to do, because facing the prospect of, again, I used the 30 truck example of paying an extra $150,000 a year for your drivers plus payroll taxes. So figure another 8% on that for the FICA. Man, that's a lot of money, 162 grand. Nah, they're not going to do. If they could do that, they would have done it already. So this is where I think people are going to end up. So now I've got a slide with both the old way and the new way on here, and you can see. So the options are going to be for a trucking company, basically pay them the effective rate you were paying them before, and pay the extra 200 bucks. Or when you can do stuff in the middle too, you could always split the difference, lower their hourly rate, and do it that way. Everybody's going to go to the second one. They're all just gonna. So that's just what they're going to do. Yeah, it's just math, right? And then what's further going to happen is you're going to get someone who goes, hey, even if we go to the 17.28 an hour at overtime at time and a half, neighborhood of 26 bucks that they're going to get. If we can cut them down from 60 hours to 50 hours, if we can do something like that, then we're going to save some money, and it's going to be significant. So, and conversely, on the driver's side, they now have to, they were working 60 hours before, but now working 10 hours less really hurts them because they're losing the time and a half rate. In addition, they're less likely to get 70 hours if they were getting 60 before, because again, you guys who own trucking companies and run trucking companies can do math, or have someone who can do math. I'm assuming you can do this kind of math. Hey, I'd rather not pay 26 bucks an hour when I can pay 17 to somebody else. All right. I think that's fair, and I think that's what everybody's going to do. And so ultimately, I think the response to this bill, for the most part, is going to be nothing, because I think it's just going to irritate the drivers that they thought they were getting 20 bucks an hour before, and now they're going to see on their pay stub 17.28. There's also a more creative response to this that I had thought of. I don't think people are going to do this, but for my friends in California who have non-productive time laws, it's the suggestion that I had thought of, and I heard from other people that there are attorneys recommending it. Basically, you pay all your drivers minimum wage, and then you give them a bonus for the miles that they ran. So if minimum wage in your locality is 10 bucks an hour, I'm just using that again to make easy math. At 10 bucks an hour, all this stuff gets cut in half, so they get $700 for their pay for the 60 hours. But you wanted to pay them $1,200, you'd give them a mileage bonus that worked out. Again, you just do the math out and say, we're going to give you a $500 mileage bonus or something like that. So you could get there that way too. I think that'd be a little trickier to try and get through. You're going to have effective rate issues, but it could happen. So just keep that in mind. But again, you're going to see other wacky creative solutions, I think, as well. Trucking people have always been really good at solving unsolvable problems. It's why the rates didn't go up. So, okay, if you're a driver, I don't think there's a lot of drivers here. I think these are more trucking companies. But if I was a driver, how would I respond to this? Well, you got to decide what you value. You've got to decide, is the pay the most important thing? Does my company treat me well? Do they treat me with respect? Do they value the things that I value? And what I mean by that is, if the most important thing to you as a driver is pay, just pay out the door, then do they value that? Which should be a question you'd be asking anyway. Because you don't want to give the vibe as a trucking company that you're trying to steal or take from your driver. So, what are you going to do? Do you value retirement plans? Do you value time at home? Do you value getting to drive new equipment? Do you value getting to drive old equipment? I've seen drivers who like to drive 2001s. So I'm just saying those are out there. you got to decide what's important to you, and you got to make the best decision for you. That's not unique to companies, that trucking companies, by the way. That's true of everyone everywhere. So, um, yeah, so that's what I'm that's my thing. The drivers are going to do what's in their own best interest, just like the company is. Always better if you can work it out together. Well, here's some things that aren't talked about in the bill, and I think these are crazy. Who's paying for the 34-hour restart? Okay, I'm in Michigan. If I used to, the trucking company I used to work for was a produce hauler. And so they'd run out to California with something, pick up produce and bring it back. That was the main part of their job. But if you had a solo, a lot of times they had to do their 34-hour restart out in California. So how many hours of that do you have to pay for, right? If you had an employee, if you were going to a conference, if you were bringing one of your people to a conference and you had to travel to do it, and the conference is in Vegas, right? I have conferences in Vegas every year, so that's what makes me think of that. But so you have a conference in Vegas, and you bring an employee with you, you don't pay them for 24 hours a day. You pay them, generally speaking, I think the accepted idea is that you pay them for 8 hours a day. But what about 34-hour restarts? And the question isn't necessarily what's fair, it's what's legal. What's the judge going to decide if you get sued? And I think that needs to be handled. What about if the truck breaks down? Same thing. If the truck breaks down and they got to sit in Wichita, Kansas for 2 days, how much you got to pay them? I mean, a lot of you guys, I'm sure, are paying for downtime anyway, because I mean, these guys got to make, you can't, the driver can't be punished for that. So, but again, is that going to be now legislated? What if the driver chooses to go visit a friend? They're coming up, instead of taking the route you wanted to take to come back, they decide to, again, using the Michigan to California example, instead of taking the south route now because it's snowy, they decide to take the north route, go through Denver, and all of a sudden they get locked in, right? Which is super possible only 9 months of the year. So they get stuck there. You have to pay for those hours because they did something stupid? Probably. Again, most general wage and hour laws would tell you that you do. You can term them for it, but yeah. And then you have goofy things like time zones. You have things too like local laws. Like I was talking about California before. They have non-productive time hour laws and things like that. So now you're going to be, I think, generally one of the defenses is trucking is interstate, and so you're not subject to local state laws a lot of the time. California gets a little tricky. There will be other states that do the same thing. So yeah, like all these questions aren't answered. And so it's tricky. And so we don't know that, because they wrote this bill to be so short. I'm not picking on either side. It was a bipartisan sponsorship of the House bill. Neither of these guys know anything about trucking. They can't, because we would have spelled all this stuff out. Again, they made the tax cut law like 900 pages 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it was. They made the ACA was like 2,500 pages. So it's not like these guys don't like to write. So yeah, again, I'm not taking a shot at either side, so I should choose bills from both sides. But that's what I'm seeing right now. I've left extra time purposefully because I want to get to questions, and I see that we have a bunch of them. That is awesome. I have not yet looked at
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, the first question that we have from Caroline is, Mike, you talked about a flat rate worker and then converting it into hourly. Her big concern is, how is this going to impact drivers that are paid cents per mile?
Yeah, they're not. That's the thing, is they're not. That's a great question, and they're all going to be. They're really going to be hourly employees then. You can't. I think what they're saying is you've got to pay them time and a half, so you've got to be tracking hours, and which means that you're essentially then paying them by the hour. Which is, again, is a whole tricky thing, right? Like now we're more concerned about it's gonna change the way that dispatchers dispatch, because of how you've got to really watch their hours. And again, you also have the thing of the driver parked overnight and a sleeper, is that going to get paid and things like that? Is that work time? It's not work time, but is it treated as work time? Things like that. You could also run into daily in states. You could run it. It's not impossible. Some states make you pay overtime by the day. So a driver working 11 hours in a day, if they're all in the one state, and it's over 8 hours, those 3 hours might be subject to overtime now. Yeah, it just seems like we're going through a lot of things to not actually solve a problem. By the way, I've met Caroline, or she and I have talked on the phone. If you need fuel cards and things like that, factoring, She's a great person to talk to at bobtail.com. Just give her a shout out since she typed in the first question, she gets a shout out. Yeah, that's awesome. Let's see here. And I'm look like she's a follow up too about
Yeah.
a driver mutiny.
Yeah.
And how many options do they really have? Okay, that was my concern with lowering their rate, because right now the driver's still going to get paid the $1,200 in the example that I gave. So you still have that same issue. So you can have a driver mutiny. I think my projection of what would happen is drivers would be angry about it. Drivers would go to the truck stop, complain to everybody, realize everybody's doing it, and decide they don't really have an option. Which was your follow-up question, how many options do they have? And then given the driver shortage, I have a whole hour's worth of thoughts on driver shortage. The American Trucking Associations, again, says it's real. FreightWaves says it's not. I'm of the opinion of, I'll make it as brief as I can here. The driver shortage is a macro problem, but it doesn't have to be a micro problem like in economics. And what that means is it's kind of like if you see that the unemployment rate goes up, but you didn't lose your job, you're still employed. That's a macro problem because other people lost their job and it stinks for them, but it doesn't really affect you because you're still employed. That's what this is. The driver shortage in the sense is there, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be there for you. There are things you can do. The very quick spoiler is know what your company's about and have standards. We've got a whole video series coming on this. I've been working on it for a while. I want to get that out to you, but anyway, I don't want to take up an hour of your time talking about it right now because that's not why you're here. I'd actually love to take the hour and talk to you about it, but I shouldn't do that.
That's another one.
Yeah, that video series is coming, so
Yeah.
just not today.
Yeah.
What do we got next here?
How would this affect detention pay or layover pay?
Well, yeah. Well, again, it would add to the hours. So if you were, let's just say you had planned on 60 hours for that driver, and that driver, that you had it worked out, right? It was 60 hours if the driver could get unloaded within 2 hours or whatever. But all that detention time, unloading time in general, and loading time in general are now going to be paid hourly to the driver. So you're going to have to pay all that time anyway. And that's why I kind of brushed over it in the example of the 60 hours, because that wasn't 60 hours of driving. That was just 60 hours of being on the clock, which included loading and unloading time. But one of the things that now changes, and I think Jody might be alluding to this, is that if that's overtime now, if that's extra overtime, like you had thought you were going to have 60 hours, now you have 65 because they were at a Walmart DC that just couldn't get you, right? Or something like that, which happens. Walmart's a little better about it now, but than they used to be, but they're still, you all know who your receivers are that you always just are going to spend forever. But you get a surprise one and you got an extra 5 hours of detention. Yeah, you get to bill it, but the detention rate's going to have to go up to what you charge the customer. And this is the inflation I think the ATA was talking about in the full statement that they made, because you got to now pay the driver instead of paying them whatever you were paying for detention when it was longer. Now you got to pay them the $25 an hour in my example, and that's even if you mark down the rate, you're still at 25, $26 an hour, which is more than you were paying before. So that cost has to get absorbed somewhere. Trucking has done an amazing job of absorbing costs and absorbing new legislation and having their life made harder and having inventory levels be tighter over the last 40 years since deregulation in 1980. Just astounding what they've done. But enough's enough, man. It's already too hard to be in trucking as it is. So I think this could be, in the larger sense too, this could be a bill if it got passed, and if you kind of get everybody under it, you can use that as a reason to raise rates, which I know a lot of you, I didn't look through the whole list, but I don't think that Schneider's here. I don't think that Knight Swift is here. I don't think that JB Hunt's here. If you are, hello. They're the ones who can more set the market, and even really they can't. The whole market's got to come up. It's a whole supply and demand, and we're oversupplied right now with trucks, which will fix itself, much like it does in National Geographic in the wild. But it's I'm just saying, like, that maybe something like that might jump up some of the pay rates, which would help us.
Right.
Again, sorry if that's a longer answer than you were looking for.
So I have a concern here, and I think you touched on this. The states that have the required minimum wage amount, we still have to, even if you're lowering rates and whatnot, you still have to be able to have that minimum wage payment, right, to your drivers.
Yeah, you can't.
Maintain that.
Right, you can't set it low. You're just going to be paying, basically, think of it as you're going to be paying the drivers hourly now. And so you can't pay them sub minimum wage, which you really couldn't before anyway, but now you're going to be required to pay them time and a half. As Jean puts in hers, it's $15 an hour in California, and it might be going up. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. But again, in localities in California too, I think Sacramento has their own minimum wage, which was higher than California, or was the same as California before California got to $15 or whatever it was. They just had all this other stuff. You're going to be subject to all that. And so fortunately, as much as fortunately can be, the market rate for drivers is you're going to pay more than minimum wage anyway. So it shouldn't be an obstacle, but it is a thing. It's definitely something to be aware of, because yeah, there's going to be, as is the case of any legislation in any government, whether state or federal, there's always unintended consequences, and unintended consequences are going to come out in this thing in spades. They're going to be everywhere. This is one of them. That we're going to have to change the way that we pay drivers, or the way that we think about how we manage the drivers, which the drivers aren't going to like. It almost goes back to the mutiny thing, because a lot of the drivers that I've known for years, and maybe it's changed with the younger drivers, but I doubt it, is part of what they like about driving a truck, especially the over the road guys. There's nobody on their back, nobody micromanaging them to death. I mean, they didn't like e-logs, they don't like the dash cameras, they don't like the trailer tracking, because they just look, they think of it kind of like I forgot the guy's name in City Slickers, the old man, Jack Palance, his character, who was the cattle he's the rancher, he's got to move the cattle 800 miles or whatever he had to do. He just leaves one end, shows up at the other end, don't ask him how he did it. He's just going to take responsibility for it and get it done. And a lot of truck drivers, we've always called them like the last cowboys, because it's the same idea. And this is going to be even less so, because now them taking longer to do something is going to cost you money. Besides the fuel it already cost you or whatever else, it's going to cost you money. The driver might almost be incentivized to take the wrong route, because they'll get more hours.
Right.
So
I do have another question here too before we went completely out of time.
Yep.
This law isn't going to affect per diem, is it?
Oh, yeah, Dawn. I was just thinking about that too. It's only going to affect it in the sense of, when you do the minimum wage calculations, you've got to account for overtime rates. So again, we'll use California as one of the highest, the $15 an hour minimum wage. If you have that and they have overtime at $22.50 and they work 60 hours, I don't have the math in front of me, but that's neighborhood of $1,050, I believe. So you just have to make sure that their rate net of per diem is at least $1,050 in that case. So if you were paying them $1,200 and now you have this law, you can only pay them $150 in per diem, because otherwise you're going to be subject to minimum wage problems, which you never were before. It was never even close. But yeah, by the way, to a quick shameless plug for us, we've got links on our website, or on our thing here. We also have one, if you go to truckingpayroll.com/webinar archive. We did a per diem webinar 2 weeks ago. If you don't pay per diem, cannot recommend enough that you go look at that. It's going to save you money. It's going to save your drivers money. You're going to be the hero. That's my plug for that. Again, it's like this one where it's educational and not salesy. Let's see here. I'm going to try and rapid fire a couple more questions. Thank you, everybody that sent questions. This is awesome. I love when people send questions. These become articles for us on our website. So that's how I always love trucking questions. And if you had the question, 1,000 other people had the same question. So you're just the one who had the fortitude and the ambition to type it in. Can we get a copy of the slides? Automatic. You're going to get those. Yep. We're also going to post this, for those of you watching it live, we're going to post it on our website in the next few days. So it'll be there as well. How does this affect owner operators? It does not affect owner operators. Owner operators are contractors, and as such, not subject to employment law. So you're good there. That was actually one of the questions that got emailed to me. So I had that answer ready to go. Yeah, they're contractors, so they're not subject to it. Where you would get in trouble is if you have somebody who's a contractor that's not supposed to be a contractor. That's a whole 1099 versus W-2. We've got a webinar for that too, that we've done before, and we'll probably do that again in the spring with whatever updates have changed since then. Let's see here. I'm going to try and do two more. Tim says, why not divide ELD by mileage pay? It's not hard to get the OT pay. ELD, you mean on the hours, right? Yeah. As long as you're paying them a minimum wage, that's basically the example I did. So you're on the right idea. And again, I think that probably all of you here, just because you're here, meaning you want to learn about things, you're going to be curious enough that you're going to figure out how to work around this.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it took like 4 seconds to come up with it. So, and I think all of you would have gotten there too. So yeah, but the problem with the one problem that with Tim's suggestion is you don't want to change their hourly rate week to week. That's going to get
No.
you in trouble. It's legal you can change somebody's hourly rate and it's legal to do it, but if you do it continually, it's going to be clear and obvious that it's a workaround and some
Mm-hmm.
attorney's going to own you. They're going to go to the right court and you're going to be screwed. And I don't want that. So I would pick a base rate and just kind of average it out, or I would pay them a minimum wage and I would do the hourly bonus to get them up to the number. I don't really love that idea. I'm just putting it out there. That's an idea. Don't go do it because I told you to do it. Talk to your own attorney about it, please, please, please. Oh, good. And Dawn just asked the same question I got email too. Any idea when this will go into effect?
Yeah.
Right now it's in committee, which means that they're going to have hearings and they're going to grandstand for everybody. And it's in both the House and the Senate. So I think there will be hearings because the Republicans run the House committee and the Senate runs the Democratic committee. So or the Democrats run the Senate committee. So whichever side feels like they're more excited about it, and I think that will be the Senate, but I don't know. We'll probably have hearings. And again, bring your popcorn for when the senator from Oklahoma and the Teamsters guy are together. And we'll go out. I'm sure it's on YouTube or somewhere. Go find it. Yeah, whatever side you agree with, you're gonna love it. So I'm just saying, like, that's a bipartisan recommendation because you're gonna feel like somebody advocated for you. Let's see, one more. If we pay them per mile, if this goes through, will we have to move them to hourly? Yeah, I think so. And like Rhonda, that's what I'm talking about. It's going to change the way that we dispatch. It's going to change the way that we run our trucking company pretty fundamentally if we decide that we're going to care about this. And what's going to happen is we're going to care about it because we're going to have drivers eventually just being people. I'm not picking on drivers. I think the owners would do the same thing. They're going to act in their own best interest.
Yep.
And not consider the long-term things. We all do it. We're all people, right? So that's going to happen. I'm not on either side about it. But a driver might be, it's kind of I'll give you an example of a goofy random possible outcome is driver gets getting paid by the hour. So now he's going to drive slower because he was driving 75 and complaining that you governed him at 75 when you should only be governing him at 65. But whatever, if you're out west, higher speed limit, you're out in Montana or something. But so you're going to drive 55 because he's basically getting a raise to do the same job versus because he knows he's going to have to sit when he gets there, he might have to sit or whatever. So he may as well be on the clock. So it's going to cost you more in wage, but it'll actually save you fuel. So there's all this, like, again, these are third and fourth order consequences that we're talking about here. The main thing I would tell people is know your drivers, communicate with them, have a culture, which is, again, going to my series that's coming. Oh boy, I'm like 7 minutes late. So those of you who stuck around, I appreciate that very much. We've got some links here on the page. We got the link at the bottom is how to get 3 free months from Ascend. If you're looking at a TMS, they're fantastic. They're super responsive to requests to me. Like when they bring out new features every month. It's amazing. If you're a client of ours, you get 3 months free. You don't need to put a credit card in. If you're not a client of ours, you can still get a month free. So just try it out. Love them to pieces. Again, Caroline, who asked the first question, she's at bobtail.com. They're getting into some other things, but they've got fuel cards and things like that, factoring if you need that. By the way, we have a page on our website with good people to know. Go check that out. If you need anything, there's accountants, there's attorneys, there's insurance companies, there's Ascend is on there. Bobtail will be. So yeah, we want to connect you. If you need somebody in particular, even if it's not us, hit us up. We'll try and connect you with them. And for those there are a couple questions we didn't get to, I'll try and answer you. We'll put them in the email when we send out the link for the video and with the slides. So if there's any other questions that I don't feel like we answered, we'll cover them there. If you have other questions later, by the way, Melissa may be following up with you to see if you have other questions.
Absolutely.
Have them ready, and she will be able to try. If she can't answer them, she'll get to me, and we'll get you an answer. A lot of this is unknown. Again, the timeline, because it's in the in the committees, Congress and the Senate have shown an amazing ability to get things done when they want to get things done, and an amazing ability to get nothing done when they want to get nothing done. Again, I'm not picking on either side. I'm just saying, like, that's just the landscape that we're in. So I can't tell you for sure when it's going to be. Something goofy could happen, and then they decide this is the most important thing they got to get done, so they can go campaign on it. It's always an election year, even though it won't be till next year. It's always an election year.
Mhm.
So I'm not picking on either side. So awesome. Thank you, those of you who are still here. We'll have this up on our website in a few days. We're gonna. Oh, last thing. We're gonna do a webinar 2 weeks from today about year end and starting the new year and the things you want to be looking for to make sure your payroll stuff runs smoothly. Look forward to that. We'll send you all out an invitation. Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a happy December coming up soon in a couple days. Yeah, I forgot what day it was. Awesome. And we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks a lot.
Bye all.